Tessa and I'm here with a few of my colleagues in the Obec course. We're very happy to have you with us. So this course is organized in the framework of an Erasmus project. My colleague Yip will later on explain you what the project is and what is intended through this course. I have the honor, however, today to introduce you to EURADA for those who don't know us yet. Yip, can you share the presentation for me, please? So EURADA is a network organization composed of regional development agencies. We bring them into contact to work on everything that touches upon economic development. Yep, can you show the next one? This is the theory, the development of the endogenous potential of a geographic area. Now, for those who are not familiar with economic development, what could this mean? We will show you on the next slide a few things that regional development does in a region. So finance, training, vocational education, which today, as it happens, we are doing. Creation of enterprises, which is the cross-cutting theme of today and the next 2 days, how to create your enterprise and how to do it well. Technology and innovation, we will be touching on as well. Promotion of areas for the establishment of companies. This is also something of the responsibilities that they do. Keep on going. Attraction of investors, which is also one of the parts that is important for your business plan. So also Cristian today will be speaking about attraction of investors, creating an enterprise, okay. Industrial infrastructure, next one, I think we're almost there. International trade, okay, yep, thank you. Next one. Voila. So development agencies are mainly public entities carrying out an economic development mission characterized by the search and promotion of the overall interest of an area, significantly liaising with a local, metropolitan or regional authority with respect to management, financing or mission. You can proceed, yep. So what do we actually do? We will show you. So as you can see here today, we organize European high-level events. This one is in the framework of a project and it provides training, but we also organize huge events where we bring officials of the European Commission together with our members to work on certain themes in quite high-level events. One of them is our annual EURADA meeting, which is very well known in the European theater. We have a continuous dialogue with the EU institutions. Like today, here you see, we are going to train regional economic practitioners. Not only do we organize this training, we also organize a number of trainings during the year already. And in the summer, we have a very big summer school where you are all welcome to attend. We participate and assist our members in EU projects. So like I already said today, Obec is a European project and this training is part of it. And we coordinate a number of working groups on very interesting topics, particularly decided upon by the membership. Okay, yep. So this is our reach of the network, let's say. So our secretariat is based in Brussels. We have 65 members currently, we're still growing. We cover 23 countries and currently we are touching the lives, the economic life, let's say, of 140 million persons every day through our work. We also liaise with our overseas counterparts like IEDC in the States. We have a counterpart in Canada, so here you can see where they are. Okay, next. Next. So what else do? We provide partnerships among development agencies. We bring them into contact with one another. Next slide, yep. So here you can see some of the outputs that we had last year. We agreed, we make about 10 agreements per year between members, stakeholder cooperation 5, and exchange of experience meetings, which go very much in depth of the practical work that the members do every single day, 10 meetings per year. We also help them in the successful participation in EU projects through one of the things that our colleague Ivana, who is currently not on screen, I think, is vital in. We help them through the proofreading of their proposals. We give them support there, like we said. So the members, all of them have the right to call upon us for a very profound proofreading twice per year. We also disseminate their ongoing projects and activities, and we launch partner searches where they provide us with information really particularly for a given profile that they still need to make a successful bid in a European project. Next. So between 2011 and 2019, we helped our members to benefit from a lot of grants, as you can see here, 51 million euro. I don't think it's very little, it's rather large. When I see it like that, it's quite impressive actually. And over 300 project partners. Voila, thank you, Yep. So we increase the visibility of agencies with our events. We help them by organizing them or co-organizing them. We also host them. So also we identify very high level speakers that they could use for their events, or we provide one of our secretariat's experts to go and speak in the regions if there is no pandemic ongoing, obviously. We will promote their agencies in the European institutions, and we provide very specific services also connected to events. Next, thank you. So facilities in the heart of Europe, as I said, we are Brussels based, we are in the middle of the European quarter, and as such, we are the ideal place where our members can come, let's call it a port of call. They can call upon us for organizing their meetings in our building. We provide them with co-working space because of the ideal location. We host them, and we also help them broker delegation visits, so where we compose an agenda for them, very targeted to their specific region's needs, and we bring them in contact with the right people at the right place at the right time. Next slide, thank you. So these are our services. Okay, next. So EURADA is a very stable framework where members can come to connect their agencies with other colleagues, and this is very much appreciated by them, and this is the main reason why they are here. Next slide. So voila, you could call us the unique European Club of Economic Developers, where we bring them together. Let's call us the bridge to Europe. Voila, thank you, Yep. And now I will hand the floor to my colleague Yep, who is together with me and our other colleague Marta, managing the Obec project. So Yep will today explain you what the Obec project is and how the platform where the...
Good morning, everyone. Once again, I would like to welcome everyone to this course on business planning. My name is Yip Lensen. I'm Junior Project Officer here at EURADA. I just joined the organization in February. So before we jump right into this week's training course, I would like to introduce you to the project that brought us all together here today, which is Obec. So just to paint a picture, I would like for you to imagine moving to another country. In fact, moving to a country in Europe. You start looking for housing, you start looking for a job, and you don't expect any difficulties on that front because you have a degree in a higher education institution in your own country. But when you apply, you notice that you get many rejections and that employers are hesitant to hire you because they have trouble recognizing your foreign educational credentials. In fact, more than 40% of the employed, highly educated third country nationals work below their qualification levels in the EU, according to the European Commission. So that's why we've started Obec. And what is causing this issue? Well, there are several reasons for that. First, there are few precise EU rules for cross-border recognition of educational credentials. Second, most standardized systems implemented by the authorities exist for EU citizens only. And thirdly, most rules are adapted to the national circumstances, creating huge difference among countries. So imagine you're moving to another country. You are in the process of getting to know the culture, learning the language, and yet you're here all alone, trying to figure out how to get your educational credentials recognized. That is why we started Obec. Obec stands for One Block for Educational Credentials. It is a co-funded Erasmus Plus program of the European Union and a collaboration between 5 partners from 4 member states, being Sweden, Italy, Croatia, and Belgium. The project's goal is to encourage the professional and academic integration of migrants, exchange students, and individuals with formal and non-formal learning backgrounds. So how are we going to tackle this issue? How do we aim to get the educational credentials recognized? Well, the consortium has created the ECTA platform, which is a platform for standardization and simplified issuance of competences that can be used by the institutions that are responsible over this process. We explore the potentials of blockchain technology to promote competency development and the recognition of skills and qualifications by creating an innovative system to issue and validate those learning credentials. Learners and institutions can use this technology, which is transparent and trusted, for securing, sharing, and verifying their learning achievements across Europe. So, in fact, we are paving the way for the future generations, as all of you participating in this course will have their educational credentials and competences and the degree of this course published on ECTA. Just now, I will continue by informing you on how to do so, but in the meantime, I would ask if there are any doubts, please contact us via email or any other way. This presentation is aimed to introducing you to the ECTA platform and how to claim your competences and degree. So as I mentioned before, after the completion of this course, so either it is the business planning course, you take one, or you take two of them, including the circular economy course, which we obviously highly recommend next week as well. And the degrees and corresponding competences will be published on ECTA. And now I will just briefly explain you how we can set up the account and claim those certifications. It is also important to mention that the competences are determined by the speakers directly. So how do we activate ECTA? First of all, we are sending you a manual on how to do this later on after the course. So you can do this at your own time, very peacefully as well. So don't worry if this is a lot of information and you're a little bit overwhelmed. But the first step is to go to obec.ecta.si and then create an account by clicking on register. Then please enter your email address and password according to your preferences. After logging in and agreeing with the terms and conditions and privacy policy, please select the option to become a freelancer on the platform. Once you've done so, click on My Profile, and this is what you'll see. It's an awfully empty account on the ECTA platform, but that is about to change. Because after completing this course, you can add the following information. For school and university, you can add EURADA. For program, please enter business planning and entrepreneurship, and the year is 2002. After you've clicked add, please enter verify. Now, after we have concluded this week's course, we will send you the following information: the personalized national ID, student number, and the diploma number. You can all add these in the column as you see on your right. After you've done so, please click submit, and at that stage, your proposal is pending and we will accept it. And once it has been registered and confirmed, your page will look like this, with an education and the accompanying competencies. So I know that this was quite an abstract presentation and a lot of information. So please do not hesitate to contact us or send us an email. And yeah, I wish you all a lot of fun and yeah, for you to have an informative week this week. Thank you for attention. I will give the floor back to Tessa.
I see that he still not reappeared, so I'm going to already take the floor to present Cristian, because I had the pleasure of working with him for many years. Cristian holds the degree of commercial engineer. He is from Belgium. He is also the proud owner of 2 awards from the International Economic Development Council, the Chairman's Award and the Lifetime Achievement Award. It's quite high level, though he's quite modest and he never wants to boast about it, so I'm going to do it on his behalf. Saying that he is the right person to share his ideas on entrepreneurship with you all today is a slight understatement. Not only has this man founded 4 nonprofits in his life, he is also the founder and former director of EURADA. For more than 20 years, Cristian was at the helm of our association, steering it through sometimes choppy waters. As such, I've had the pleasure of working with him, and I was in a privileged position to witness him introducing a plethora of novel ideas into the field of European economic development, and also engaging in lively debates with very high-level representatives of the European Commission. I think we can almost call him the patron saint of European economic development, though I think he will, again, be too modest to accept the title. But alas, I've given it to him, he will have to accept it. We are very honored and very much obliged to him as well that he agreed to help us out with the kickoff of our course. I think it will elevate a lot the level of the material presented, and I think we're all in for a very nice day of learning very interesting things. So Cristian, if you are there, without further ado, the floor is yours.
So thank you, Tessa, for the kind words and introduction. I want to bring you for the next few hours in the way you want to become an entrepreneur or to help entrepreneurs to start their business. And for that, I raise a question, are you entrepreneur ready? Can you put the first slide? Okay, so what I will try to do is to define what are the challenges to be an entrepreneur, how to define your product and service, and we will start by that because this is a critical issue, and then think into market. Also very important, especially if you are not a solo entrepreneur, how to build your team. Then to raise the question, is there a difference between to be a good manager and an entrepreneur? And of course, we will see the next steps. We will be the topic of tomorrow and the day after. And finally, to let you have questions and statements. Next slide, please. So the game of the day, as you plan to become an entrepreneur, you will soon start to write your business plan. So what should you think about even before to write it? You will seek to find external source of funding or even some advice. So what should you be able to answer and to advocate in your business plan and in the discussion with your external advisor? The first is, what type of leader are you? Are you psychologically ready to become an entrepreneur? The second question to think about, has entrepreneur notion a positive image around you? So is the family ready to support you? It's a hard way. And then to look to your production model. Even if you have a service, you have to be able to produce it. So this is the technical readiness. And finally, are your target well defined enough? That will be your commercial readiness. And last but not least, is your financial scenario strong to have, of course, a cash readiness? Next slide. Now, food for thought. Recently, I read in LinkedIn this sentence: the recipe for creating a successful startup is not that complex. I let you think about, is it right or wrong? And they said, well, it's easy. Find something others need, create a product or a service that meets that need, and get the right people together. So we come back to what I said earlier, to the answer to some question. what is your product, how you create it, and finally, how you build a team around it. So next slide, please. So when we speak about needs, what do we mean? For me, there are at least 5 different types. The obvious one, people need food, health, housing. They are express needs. We need low-cost energy, and especially recently is a real issue. Healthy food. There are real needs. ICT literacy among aging population. Aging support. There are also a lot of unsatisfied needs. Cybersecurity. Drought-resistant plan if we have climate change. Care for sick children. If you are a woman and you work and the kids become sick everywhere, it's a problem. And finally, there are societal needs. So people want to have a CO2 reduction, plastic substitution, water energy supply in poor countries, and nowadays even in Europe, they have also some problem. And of course, you can find your own needs. You are not alone as an entrepreneur, so you may ask for support, and here are a few ways you can ask for support. The first, of course, is the friends and the family, because you need to have confidence about your idea. If you want to be a hairdresser, you can ask someone of your family to give his ad and you try on it. If you want to be a baker, you can give the pastry around your friends and ask them what they think about it. At one stage, you may have to go to public institution. They give grants, they give advice, but also they can give you permits if you need them. And of course, you can search for tax holidays. Nowadays, a lot of crowdfunding platforms are available. So with them, you can have market reaction and also first client. It's depending what type of crowdfunding you will choose for, but this is quite interesting in terms about the validation of your ideas. Of course, you may need loans and go to banks. If you are more sophisticated startup, you will seek for equity with the private investor, business angel. And at the end of the day, if you grow a little bit, you need to find senior staff to build your team. Next one, please. And this graph shows that in a region, everywhere in Europe, there is a kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem where the government, even at regional level, and sometimes even at city level, they have an entrepreneurial policy. Of course, you have to meet the regulation and a framework or to use the infrastructure. I have already mentioned the different type of fundings that you can ask for. There is a cultural entrepreneurial sometimes. That means that the people are open to support by different means like networks or even a step more in the sophistication, mentors, advisor. Then you have universities, which they have sometimes applied research department, which can help you if you are working in the field of technology with your product or service. Education and training is important, especially for startups who have to hire skilled people, or the skill is not on the street and you need to train themselves to adapt to your product or business idea. Of course, in the region, there is human capital and workforce. And finally, there are local market, but also you might have the need to go on the global markets. Next slide, please. Know why we check your readiness to be an entrepreneur. This is an interesting slide. We say that, well, 10% of what you learn, you can find that by your readings. 20% by what you hear, like today or tomorrow. 30% on what you see. 50% of what you see and heard. 70%, that's rather important to see what you discuss. 80% of what you have experienced, and then on what you teach to others. And you will listen to the day after tomorrow how to pitch your idea in front of people, and to prepare your pitch, you will be more confident about your readiness. Yes, next slide, please. So, before starting your journey as an entrepreneur, I believe you need to review your personality and also your leadership capacity. As I already mentioned, manager or innovator is not entrepreneur. There are a lot of people who have very good ideas with a technology involved into the product they have in mind, but they are not really ready to be an entrepreneur. And that's where you need to build your team or to have good advisors around you when you start. And the same, it's not because you are a good manager that you want to create your own business. So again, those are different skills and not necessarily in line with what is expected from an entrepreneur. The second point is to do a self-assessment of the key element of your business idea, which will be then transformed into a business plan. And there, from the beginning, you need to strengthen the evidence and to highlight the success factors that you will write later on your business plan or in the pitch with the third parties that will be involved in your journey. Review the arguments, and you have to adapt them to the specific interest or the decision-making process of the people you will talk to. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. And finally, try to simplify your message to be able to draw the attention of your audience in 5 to 10 minutes. So go to the point and not make a long story around it. The people will lose their interest in what you say. Next slide, people, please. So why to think twice and to assess your plan to become an entrepreneur? First, imagine the consequences of failing on your life and on your psychology. Will it be a drama or an opportunity to restart stronger? There we see a lot of difference in culture between the US and in Europe. In Europe, if you fail, you might have some stigma for a while. In the US, it's considered as a good point on your CV. And recently on LinkedIn, there was a story about people like Jeff Bezos, etc., or Bill Gates, who have tried 6 or 7 times with their business plan, and finally they got onto the road. I strongly believe that the worst case scenario, and that's not often put in perspective by the public authorities when they take into consideration the promotion of entrepreneurship, is that you should, at the end of the day, have the following CV. You were an employee, you became unemployed, you start your business, and at the end of the day, you fail as an entrepreneur. So be careful to to take all the possibilities, and I will come back to that in a few minutes, to have a secure environment as much as it is possible before you start your business. Next slide, please. When I said earlier that you have to adapt your presentation to the people that you will meet during your journey, I think you have to adapt the chameleon theory. You know, this is the animal who change color according to the daylight, etc. You have to have in mind, and maybe why not on paper, a business plan and a financial result that is adapted to the end user, because you have to show and serve different purposes. The first one, the most obvious, if you want to go to the banker will only be interested on your capacity to pay back the loan in safe security for them. And they have to, and you have to present collaterals. And this is sometimes difficult to understand. I will give you a good example with the start of EURADA. When we create EURADA, we had to have a premise, and the land loan asked 3 months of guarantee. So I went to the bank and say, okay, can you open and give me a credit? And they say, yes, of course, Monsieur Saublens. What's your balance sheet? We have no balance sheet. We just create the organization. Okay, then I need as collateral your house. My private house has served as collateral for giving to the bank insurance that they will lose maximum 3 months of rent if I cannot pay the rent of the office. A few years after, we need a bank guarantee for an EU contract of €500,000. And only on the track record, I didn't have to present any guarantee. So bankers are only giving money when they are sure to get their money. And of course, more you have as assets, the more easy it becomes. A venture capitalist, if you are in line to create a fast-growing company, what they will look at is just the way you will be able to generate high growth and return. And you know, they will stay with you 3 to 5 years in general, and then to cash back their investment. Public authority will give you grants. In general, you have to show that you fulfill the regional strategy. Mainly, they look to jobs. Note today, they have a little bit shift, and they take on board the way you can achieve social or societal goals. That's why social entrepreneurships become a little bit in fashion. If you have to talk with big firms, because you can subcontract to them, what they will look is that you are able to deliver on time, and of course, with the expected quality they require. Then come two serious other people to present your business plan and your financial result. It's yourself. Are you convinced that you are able to deliver what you think you can promise, and that this don't overcome your expectation or your dream? And finally, you have to show it to your family, and there you have to reassure that somebody confuse the turnover and the profit or the cash with their pocket money. I strongly believe that in Belgium, a lot of people who start a restaurant or a snack fail just because they have confused the turnover with their own money. So be very careful there. Next slide, please. So this is a graph which was made by Richard Florida, a real expert in economic development in the US a few years ago. And he explained that for a while, entrepreneurs were guys who were the farmers, and I believe to be a farmer is an entrepreneurial exercise. Then you became a craftsman, employee or administrative consultants or whatever, and finally more people start their business because they are very creative. So can you combine this creativity with being either a service provider or a technician or even a farmer? When you see today some farmer have plenty of ideas using ICT, using different distribution system or whatever. So today, the most important skill or mindset that the entrepreneur has is the creativity, and we will come back several times in the presentation. Next slide. Can we define a different type of entrepreneur? And so what is your dream of being one of those type of entrepreneur? In some cases and in some regions, especially the poorest, even in Europe, you become entrepreneur by necessity. You have no real or good job opportunity. If you look on the beach in southern Mediterranean area, people selling ice cream on the beach or some snack or whatever, or postcard. So that's what I mean by entrepreneur by necessity. You have then solo entrepreneur or only family support entrepreneur. You become a shopkeeper or a hairdresser, or like my brother was, an electrician, but without staff. You can become an entrepreneur as a lifestyle. You are your own boss. You have the capability to buy a house, to have a nice car, and you want not necessarily to grow, because if you grow, you have to recruit staff. Staff can be ill. If you have more staff, they can go on strike. They can a little bit dilute the business model and so on. Then you have a second generation entrepreneur. You can take over an existing business. That can be a good idea because you have already the basis for the technology, for the markets, etc. And you can develop it in a more modern way. Or as second generation, you have the chance that your parents were entrepreneurs and you take over the business. Then we come a little bit to the ambition about your entrepreneurship mindset. Do you look only to be serving the local markets? So shopkeeper, micro enterprise, and to be a local entrepreneur. Of course, you can combine that mindset with being a solo entrepreneur or a lifestyle entrepreneur. Do you want to be an ambitious entrepreneur to grow quickly? And this is the key of your ambition. Will you be an entrepreneur defined as a risk taker, so constantly innovating? Do you want to be a serial entrepreneur? That's more again in the US culture. Youngsters want to start a business. After 3, 4 years, 5 years, they want to sell it and to restart another business afterwards. Today, is it more with a social conscience or societal conscience, and you want to be a social entrepreneur? You can, of course, be a subcontractor, especially if you want to produce parts of a system and so on, or only to become a franchise. So there is a lot of company who grows by opening shop and finding somebody who wants to take the responsibility. So here, maybe some of the people in the audience want to point out what are their spirit and their objective as entrepreneur. Someone wants to take the floor?
Maybe we can show the intermittent result of the Slido for a second, Ivana. We have launched the second question a while ago and some people have voted already. Maybe it's interesting for you, Cristian.
Yeah, if people want to.
So which type of needs would you try to cover with your business idea? And there is a status quo between obvious, unsatisfied, societal, real, and other.
Yeah, it would be interesting, the 30% of people who mention other, what they have in mind.
Yeah, maybe
Can you identify them?
I can't, everybody votes anonymous, but maybe somebody wants to take the floor. They're more than welcome to explain. I know we have at least one very young entrepreneur among us, maybe our colleague Adria, who is also an entrepreneur of a startup in Valencia, would like to say something. Adria, I'm provoking you, I know, but voilà.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I was going to speak. I voted for societal, but because in my particular case, I'm really concerned about societal goals, rather social, environmental, economic, but looking for a social impact. So I think that currently it's no longer a trend, but a reality that we have to care more about some things that are not only money or funds or economic profit, but we have to create a more sustainable future, and that leads to an economic opportunity and to a business opportunity, which I believe can be a good goal for a startup or young startup or young entrepreneur. So I voted for the societal in this case.
Thank you. Cristian, I have a question from the floor. How do you see the evolution of the motivation of entrepreneurs?
That depends of the general feelings that people have. So if I look to Wallonia, the region I know more or less best of for the moment, we saw during the pandemic that people really wanted to start their business. Some by necessity, because they were employed in sector who were closed down for a while, and they had to find revenue. In other cases, they had the time to sit and to think on what their future would be after the crisis. If the economy is going rather well, then the entrepreneurial spirit goes a little bit down, because if you are not satisfied with your job, you just leave the company and you go to another one. And this is sometimes the opportunity to raise your wage. And for me, this is something that I don't understand, honestly, because if the economy goes well, the market opportunities of a new product or service should be higher as the people have more revenue. So this psychology attitude is difficult to view. Another important factor is the culture and the perception of entrepreneur. And there again, if you look to Belgium, but I have read about it in other countries, if you have a region of traditional heavy industry, large company, the steel, the glass, etc., the entrepreneurial spirit is much lower than in a new type of economy since the 70s. If you take in Belgium, Wallonia, for instance, versus Flanders, and the cultural issue is that the reputation of enterprise is not so good. So your father went on strike because he had the impression that he was not well paid. They report that people were injured in a big factory or whatever. And so the boss or whatever is not well, well considered. In contrary, in region like Flanders, Bavaria, southeast of England, so those more new economy, the people were still farmers. And by nature, a farmer has to be an entrepreneur because he has to invest, he has to choose the right crops, he has to find a market, you have to be multi-activities because the woman of the farmer is selling the eggs on the marketplace, etc. So this can change heavily. And that's why a lot of regions have put in place some entrepreneurial cultural program. Some of them, and maybe you have that in your country, they ask kids at school to do a mini enterprise for 3 months, and then they produce a nice pencil or whatever, and they sell it to really understand that entrepreneur may be fun and also need a different type of competence to bring together in a team, etc. But it's very, very difficult to change completely the cultural on a regional basis. And of course, you have in that cases to present a role model. We know also that entrepreneurship for women, youth, migrants, or even long-term unemployed, it's a cultural issue, but also a problem that this morning on the radio there was a small slot about is the Women's Day today, that women entrepreneurs have more difficulties than a man to find. And there also psychologically there is, I think, no reason a woman, maybe it's a cliche, and sorry for the woman there, are more careful to manage a budget than a man. And I think there is less women with a nice Audi and BMW as entrepreneur than men. So they put the money and the decision more rational than sometimes a man.
We have another question through Slido. Somebody's asking, Cristian, do you think that needs can be created, or are they always a real demand from society?
No, you can create need. You have a lot of examples of that. If I think to Nike shoes with air bubble on it or whatever, you see every year a new Apple phone. So you can create, you can also see it in the advertising with cream for your skin, and maybe you can be more sunny, friendly, whatever, or more ecological and so on. So yes, you can create the need. But at the beginning, you have always to define which type of need you will cover with your product.
Okay.
Christian, I have a question regarding this. Imagine that needs are not only new products or new version of the products, but the idea of the product itself. I mean, not creating the iPhone 12, but the iPhone itself. Do you think that creating a new product, a brand new product or brand new service can be created, or it has to be closely related to a demand from the society?
You have to come back to the food for thought of the beginning. Find something others need, and this is where it starts from. Let's go to Uber. There was no obvious need. There were taxis everywhere in Paris, in Brussels, or whatever. There was no express need. Everybody complained it's the taxi driver in Brussels are too expensive, or they cheat the people who take the taxi at the airport or whatever. But there was still no, was it a real need to have Uber? I have no answer to that. Was it unsatisfied? Yes, if you arrive at 11 o'clock in the evening at Brussels Airport, you have to wait half an hour because there was no taxi there. Was it a societal need? Maybe that people who have no fixed revenue have to do it. And you can do the same with the pizza delivery at home. Is there a need that you wait that it's brought at home? You cannot walk, you have no bike, you have no car, you have no buses, you have no tram to go to the pizza shop 300 meters away from your home. But it was created, and apparently it works. So it's difficult to say yes or no. Probably yes, you can create. Look to the fashion industry. Was it really a need, and sorry again for the woman, to invent the string? You had nice clothes to go to the beach, you know, so it's difficult really to say yes or no. It's depending on it, and there are companies who are able to create the market. And again, let's take Ryanair. What does Ryanair has invented? To bring you from A to B. That's what they did. Air France was doing it, Lufthansa, KLM, etc. So what was, no, we can discuss that Ryanair bring you on a B who is not as famous as the capital city. Or if you have a big country like Germany or Italy, they only brought you to Milano and to Roma. If you take Italy, if it has Spain, it was Barcelona or Madrid from Belgium, full stop. And now Ryanair bring you for Brussels South, which they have not the same perception of distance than I have, because for me, Charleroi is not really Brussels South, to Verona or I don't know, Sevilla, or even to Ljubljana or Timișoara, whatever I mean. That was not made by the major airlines. So they create a need, because no people decide to go for a weekend taking Ryanair. So that's always the way you perceive what is or what I called earlier unsatisfied needs, and how you detect them. I had in mind to give an example of an entrepreneur. I have here in hands a pencil, and if I can sell 1 million of them, making 1 cent of profit, I will be rich. No, my question is, why do people will buy this pencil that I've just created? And will I find 1 million people who is ready to pay for it and give me 1 cent each time they buy one? No, if I can imagine that this pencil can write top down and bottom up and avoid to make all my mistakes in my spelling, then of course I will have a good new product who satisfied a lot of unsatisfied needs, especially for people who are dyslexic like me, or was not necessarily there the day the teacher help or teach how to spell a word with two N, two L, two P, and two B's in French.
Anybody of the very anonymous floor has another question for Cristian? You can also raise your hand and ask it right away. If not, maybe Cristian, you would like a short break of 15 minutes to have a coffee?
Yeah, convenient break.
I'll come back in 15 minutes.
It's okay for me. Okay, we go ahead.
Voila.
Voilà. So next slide, please. The question I have heard several times during discussion, even in the AU office dealing with entrepreneurship, is, do you born entrepreneur, or can someone help you to become an entrepreneur? And I will make the CV of my family and to explain whether we have or not entrepreneurial DNA in your blood. One of my grandfather was a farmer, and you have heard from me already 1 or twice that for me to be a farmer is the first category of entrepreneurs. I can define my father as a would-be entrepreneur all his life. And the reason was that my mother was risk adverse. And the reason of that is what we discussed a few minutes before. She lived in a family who works in the steel industry, so big family, very paternalist and so on. And this entrepreneur and risk was not in their family. The brother of my father, I will define it, and you will not find that in any business school or business books, is a late age ego entrepreneur. It means that when he was 50 or even older than that, he strongly believed that he was more clever than the boss he was working for. So he stole the ideas. It was not patented, because it was just to grow chicken and to sell it in large quantity, including to the Belgian army. But his ego was that he never asked advice, or he didn't even listen to advice. My father was a bookkeeper, but also became later on commercial director in a mid-sized company. So he could have asked my father even to read the balance sheet or whatever, and that was not in his ego personality. And of course, when competition became harder and harder, he failed. Then it's me. I believe I can be called a soft entrepreneur. So I have created 4 non-for-profit organizations, amongst them EURADA, and also EBAN, the European Business Angel Network. I have drafted at least 4 business plans. The first one, I was probably around 22, 23, because I was still at school. And I want to create a brand for luxury camping, which now exists, but at that time didn't. Later on, I wanted to create a printed magazine for art. So the idea was to show what was on the different paint gallery in Brussels, and to offer the painters, let's say 2 pages with their CV and a few pictures of what they exhibit. The third is probably my frustration. I want to open a mega grill with 4 buffets with regional products. And on top of that, to have a shop where you could buy different products with a geographical protection name, like Serrano for the Spanish ham, Milano salami and cheese from Romania, etc. And on top of that, to have a few computers where you could book your holidays for a non-mass region, and also specialized holidays. So if you want to go on holiday or at the farm or whatever, you could book it immediately. Funny enough, I submit the business plan to 3 or 4 CEO of RDAs, members of EURADA. They all told me, this is a good idea, Christian, but none of them say, hey, come to my staff and we will help you to move away from EURADA and do it. So my questions are double. First, do those people more speak about doing it? Or second, they want to keep me in the position at EURADA. And the last business plan I wrote was a TV quiz. You know, you have a lot of quiz at television, more or less intellectual one, but this is not the issue. But they are only in their own language. So if you look to the Spanish television, you find the same quiz that in the English television or the Belgian one. But today with computer, you could send online the question in any language, so that you could make a championship between cities with 7, 8 people answering the question from London against people from Madrid and Marseille or whatever. There also I met a producer of TV, but the product of this TV production was not really about quiz, and we forget about it. Last but not least, I had to create a fiscal optimization entrepreneur when I became retired, because there is an element of money you cannot earn more. Otherwise, they cut in your retirement benefit. So I had to create a company to it. But it's not really a consultant company. I'm not chasing. And I was also making a 5th non-profit business plan. But there, again, it was just say good, but nobody took me to the next level. And the idea was to have a platform to help entrepreneurs who are faced in crisis. When there is a water flood, for instance, fridge or collapse or a machine, and you could ask the other entrepreneur who has material that they don't use to offer or to sell at a good price to the entrepreneur who has a problem. I presented even to the commission because they have a department to rescue and another with social entrepreneurship, but I'm still waiting for the interest. To continue, my brother is a lifestyle electrician entrepreneur. So at one stage, like his uncle, he find that he could do better than the boss. He wants to be his own boss, and he create his own company, but he never employ more than 2 people, just because otherwise the problem in human management would jeopardize the benefit of it. And this is a lot of entrepreneurs, I believe, are satisfied to have a lifestyle which bring them not too many trouble, but a good revenue. Now I have 2 kids, and one is an opportunistic entrepreneur. I mean by that he is an optician, and one day the family who was his boss decide to stop and offer him to take over the business. So he did. And 2 or 3 years after, the only optician shop in the town where he's living closed down. And he said, great opportunity to take over it and to offer the position of the manager of the shop to his wife. And the other is a little bit like me, or like his grandfather, is a would-be entrepreneur mindset. Is in work transition with a good idea, but still not clear in his mind whether he will return to his job or to start a business. So with that experience, I have not really the answer. What is making that even people with less university degree or skills do it, and people who have been in business school or whatever didn't make it? When I said my father was a bookkeeper, his brother was just a guy who was feeding chicken, and then he decided to become an entrepreneur. Why is that? Maybe his wife was more or less risk adverse than my mother. I have a business degree, even economic engineer, and my brother was at school in a technical school, and he became entrepreneur. And I cannot really tell that I am an entrepreneur, even with the non-for-profit organization that I create. And again, in my 2 kids, the optician left school at the age of 15 years, went to optician during 3 days at school and selling glasses for 3 days. And the other has started also a curriculum in business, and he didn't create yet his business. So what do you think in the room when you are thinking to create your business? Are you born with the fiber of becoming entrepreneur, or some people have given you the right environment that you realize your dream to be an entrepreneur? Somebody wants to comment on that? Adria?
I think that it depends on many factors and on many aspects. That, for example, which situation you are born, if entrepreneurship is an option or is something that it's even compulsory, that you have to try to earn some money wherever the way. But I think that there can be the case that for the characteristics and the personality of people, there's people that are born entrepreneurs, and that they are always, even though if they don't know it, or they don't realize it in an earlier stage, even in the teenage or when they're young, maybe they realize when they are 50 or 60, but there is people that for their character and for their passion to do new things and to drive new things are entrepreneurs, whatever the field of action they work on.
Yeah. Somebody else in the room?
Well, Marta is also an entrepreneur, our colleague Marta. maybe she can share her female entrepreneurship opinion if she's there.
Yes, I am. Hello. And I'm sorry I kept my audio off, but well, I'm a social entrepreneur and not really an entrepreneur. I mean, for profit. So it's also, yeah, it's an experience that may be different, but at the same time is, yeah, we've got a goal. We created a structure to reach that goal, and we have to manage the structure, and we have to be well organized, not to miss the real goal of our, not business in this case, okay, but of the actions that we have decided to undertake. So, well, there are a lot of opportunities also in this sense, and sometimes from a non-profit activity, well, for sure, you can gain and acquire a lot of competencies too, to start with, but then transform also your non-profit activity in a profit one. So this is, for example, my experience. I see that many of the young people that work in the, I'm the president of this non-profit association in Italy, and I see that many of the young people, much of the young people that attend our activities or collaborate in our association, later on find out a way to create their own entrepreneurship project. So that's also something that I think must be taken into account.
Yep.
I don't know if you expected this or other issues from my side.
No, I think it's a good testimony. Somebody else?
There must be other entrepreneurs here in the room, but they seem quite shy, Cristian.
Okay.
However, I'm not an entrepreneur. I come from a family of failed entrepreneurs, alas, which also is a testimony in itself.
Yeah, but then it's the question, is there a shame on your family, or are there lessons learned to become a successful entrepreneur, not repeating the mistakes that were done?
Yeah, well,
later?
I always heard my father be very angry with his father. So they had a carpenter's company from my grandfather on, and then it was inherited through the several generations. Well, my great-grandfather started it. And then what happened is that at a certain point, somewhere in the late 50s, things started to get more automated, and my grandfather was very hesitant to adopt the machinery because it was a big investment, first of all, but he was very much convinced that what he did by hand was going to be a lot better. And what happened, of course, you can predict it. The people who did invest in the machines, they were in debt for a while, which my grandfather was not at that time, at least. But that they were able to output a large volume of doors, windows, stairs, furniture, and they took a longer time to produce. So this is why they went bankrupt, of course. So
yeah, that's something with the characteristic of entrepreneur, and we mentioned it earlier. Will you be a risk taker, constantly innovating and reinvesting on the time that is needed to do it?
Cristian, if we may, we have another question. My colleague alerts me, coming from Slido. Do you think the current labor market saturation is driving a more entrepreneur-like society?
It should be. But again, we discussed earlier the cultural factor, which might stop the flow of entrepreneur. It's just how the people perceive the response that they can provide as an entrepreneur and the skill.
Okay, we still encourage, by the way, the entire audience to either drop questions in our chat or in the chat of Slido, and they can still participate.